Let's do it. Hey, man, it's wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out for the show. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem.
I love your history of being a storyteller, entrepreneur. You're a podcast host as well. So before we get into it, I want to know, surviving this pandemic about 4.5 years ago or so made all of us change our lives. Lots of things got rearranged. How much of living through that time period has affected the way that you live life today?
Actually, I've said this before. Somebody else asked me this question. Before we got to the pandemic in 2020, my life had already started taking a turn as far as being isolated from certain people. Like I used to go out to the hood all the time and kick it and hang out with the fellas. But prior to that, I say probably like 2017, 2018, just started staying at home more. I started being a homebody and, just spending time with my wife and just thinking about stuff, trying to do stuff, as far as like, well, I wasn't thinking about the podcast per se doing it, but just trying to think about things that I can do, like writing a book or things of that nature. So when the pandemic came and we became isolated and couldn't go here now, although I worked the whole time throughout the pandemic. The jobs that I had, two jobs in that time frame. The jobs that I had, neither one of them shut down, not for a day during the pandemic, and people was getting sick or whatever, but we were still moving out. But me, I was still on the go. But then when you come home, you in this isolation period. And it really didn't affect me much because I guess prior to that, I had already started uh, molding myself in that mode where I wasn't around a lot of people anyway. And so the transition was actually, it was smoother for me than it was for some other people because some other people was feeling like, oh, I can't do nothing. But like I say, I was still working. Like my wife, she's still working from home from the pandemic. But I guess because I was still able to get out and intervene with people and mingle, with coworkers and things of that nature, the transition it wasn't as dire for me as it was for a lot of other folks.
Yeah. So let's get a handle on exactly what you do. There's a lot that goes in, a lot of titles. But if I put you in front of a bunch of third grade students at Career Day right now, one of the kids in the back of the room is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
I answer that child, what I do for a living in my real work, I work for a steel mill. I
Yeah.
work for the steel mill. And the podcasting that I do is a side thing, it's side something that you enjoy. But what I tell that third grade kid is what my father told me. Stay in school, get your education, and have you a career. Something that you want to wake up every morning and do. Get up every morning and do it instead of having a job, something that you got to get up and go do. Two different things. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like having a career, I love this. I love this job. Having a job is like I gotta go because I gotta pay the bills, but I don't particularly love what I'm doing. It's just getting me from point A to point B.
Yeah.
So, but this podcasting is something that I love to do, reaching out to people, trying to inspire people. That's something that you have a passion to do. And so go with your passion in life. Go with what, saying, what life is leading you, where you're more passionate at. That's what I would tell that third grader.
What did you want to be in the third grade? What was your ultimate vision for your life?
Man, we being honest here, Joe.
Yeah.
I was the type of kid coming up in the third grade. And it's funny you said third grade. I had Miss McKinney. I was the type of kid I would go change my report card from all slat marks to check marks, and I did that. Upside down check marks, and I got my butt with. I was a curious kid.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Curious. I love sports. I love sports. I was always the best kickball or the baseball player, so that's something that I love. Academics wasn't really something that I picked up at that time. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's like my teachers would always tell my mother that I was smart, but I only did enough to get by. Because I wanted to be the one that I can't explain it, but if we had ADA back in that day, when we was down there, I would have been one of them kids where they say he got hypertension. His attention span ain't focused. So I wasn't one where the what we had like professional day, what you just asked me, the question you asked me, well, what would that third grader say, if you was to come before, when we had the police officers or the fire chiefs, fire people come to the school for professional day. I wasn't one of them to say, oh, I want to be a police officer, or oh, I want to be a fireman. Now I want to, I guess my dream was I wanted to be a athlete, back in the day. That's what I wanted to do. So that dream got expired real quick. But if I had to say anything, that's what I had my ambitions on, to be an athlete.
So the one thing about you being a podcaster is that you're a storyteller. Take me back to your early years. What were some of these seeds that were planted into you that became the podcast host, that became the storyteller, became the writer? How did this happen?
You know, like I tell people, I grew up in a two-family household with my mother and my father. I think it was I only had one friend that I grew up with where we both had our parents in the household with us. And the rest of my friends, they were, single parent households. And so one thing that molded me for one was having a father in the house for discipline, that firm discipline, had a loving mother. But my mother took me to church. When I was younger, I was going to church. She take me to church. So the Bible say, train up a child in the way that they should go, and when they get older, they won't depart from it. And so that was the foundation that she had began laying for me. And so even as a kid, I can remember back when I was in Elka, we call Elka, that's like child care, going to child care, and I was doing speech. I even got a picture. My mother still got a picture. Even back then, I was doing speeches in classes or for programs, presentations at the age of 5, 6 years old. And that's something that stuck with me throughout my life. I was in drama in junior high school. I was in drama in high school. I was doing skits and plays even in the church as an adult. So it's always been something as far as being able to speak and not being afraid to go in front of people and speak and things of that nature. And so I think that was something that was formed in me at an early age, and over time it was just something that was progressing in me, until it was ready to fully come out in the way that God wanted to use me with it.
Who's been your hero? Who's been that inspiration for you in your life?
I'm gonna tell you, man, that on the personal side, it was my father, because, like I say, sometimes when you're younger, when you're younger in life, and somebody that loves you, not gonna tell you the wrong thing. They're gonna tell you what's right. Although you may not want to hear it, or you may not understand what they're saying at times, but they're trying to lead you in a direction where you don't have to come across these pitfalls as they may have come across. But as a kid, or coming up, you think you know everything, and parents, they out of touch. They old, but I would say they ain't nothing new under the sun. And so I would say the the structure that my father provided in the household, I see a lot of it in me, but in a different form, because times change, and so you got to adapt to certain things. But as far as somebody that I admire and looked up to as a man first, you know what I'm saying? Because it takes a man to raise a man. And so just seeing my father, his work ethic, and the things that he did, and how he provided for the household, and how we didn't lack for anything, in our life. Of course, you go through certain things in life, but we didn't really lack. And so I would say that my father, to this day, God rest his soul, that he was my inspiration. But if I had to go on another note, I would also say I really admired Magic Johnson. That was my role model coming up. Like I told you earlier, I've been a fan since 1980. He was the reason why I, start liking sports and start liking the Lakers. So I've been following him for a long time, from being a basketball player to what he is today, being a business mogul, you know what I'm saying? All these, so I would say Magic Johnson was, I put him up there too as somebody that I really admire.
If you could meet Magic, if you could spend some time with him, what would you like to know? Do you have questions you would like to ask him?
Man, just like in life, like some things is the underground, underland of things of how did you deal with and sustain what you went through
Yeah.
as far as 1991. Like we may see it on the outside, but as we know that when you going through things internally, everybody the outside don't know. Like, how do you deal with that? How did you deal with this with your wife, and how did that come about? And how did you have the faith? Like I'm doing something on my other podcast right now, Joe. Matter of fact, I was just working on it before I got on with you. It's called Standing Firm. Like, how did you stand firm in the midst of trials and tribulations when all chaos is going on around you? When everything that you can't, things that you can't control, how do you keep that, that patience and that faith to still keep moving forward as if nothing is going around you? And that's that inner peace. And so that's one thing, so that I would like to ask Magic, like, like if I was going through a situation, can you give me some pointers how to deal with that? Not only with myself, but with your family, because it just wasn't him. It
Yeah.
was, it was a lot of people that was affected by what he went through, even with the Lakers organization and, the people that he had been around his team. So it was like his team was devastated. His family was devastated. So now you got all this on your shoulders. How did you deal with that? Then the final thing I asked him, how did what was it or what did you do to become as successful as you are now off of the court than you was on the court?
Yeah.
Although he had a fabulous career on the court, 5 championships, 9 NBA finals, but now, like his afterlife, even after all the stuff that he went through and all the stuff that he endured, now the second part of his life is just as good as the first part of his life. So those are the type of things I would like to pick his brain on
Yeah.
and try to get to that next level.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. As a storyteller, as someone that likes to get on stage and speak, what's one of the best speeches that you've ever seen?
The best speeches I ever seen, I would have to say it was a sermon, so I can't really explain that, but that's what some of the best speeches I've seen. I've seen my pastor, because it's just certain things that just resonate with you, especially and then it depends on where you are in life. Like some people may say, "Oh well, Les Brown." He performed one of the greatest speeches that I've ever seen, and that's because you may be in that business space and something that Les Brown said that ignited you to go to this level. But then, like me, trying to learn and building a foundation in the spiritual space, so I get my inspiration from my pastors, and so it's been some dynamic things that's been said on the in the pulpit that has really resonated with me because it's life changing, and so that's where I'm at now. I want like trying to walk a path, walk differently than I used to walk, and not only that, but having a responsibility, then having things being thrown at you like, okay, you see them doing this, so now it's time for you to go out there and plant seeds in your own way. I'm not saying I'm a pastor. I'm not saying that I'm this and that, but we all have our gifts and we all have our talents that we were all sent with. Because I look at you, Joe, even what you're doing with your platform, at the end of the day, what we all doing are planting seeds.
Yeah.
We're planting seeds in order to have people listen and try to lead people, inspire people, encourage people to do better, to be better, to see things differently. Although we may not change their perspective or their, opinion about a certain thing, but the idea is we just planting seeds.
That's it. That's it. Totally. Well said. So how do you balance all this out? You got a day job, then you got your passion projects, your what really drives you being a podcast host and a storyteller. How do you balance all this out every day? What gets you up every day and what gets you to operate at the top of your game?
Man, first, as I'm on this, I gotta give all glory and honor, man, to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for giving me the strength, the wisdom and understanding to do what I'm doing because as you know, as a podcast host yourself, it's a lot that goes into it. It's a lot that goes into it as far as editing, setting up schedules and doing your calendar and organization and then clipping videos and everything that goes into podcasting. A lot of people don't know behind the scenes
Yeah.
that you have to do. So I thank God for giving me the peace, the inner peace within me as well to just focus on the task in hand. Like you said, I gotta get up and work 5 days a week. Sometimes I'm working doubles. And to just be able to get into this space, to get into this a private space to enjoy and do something that I enjoy doing. And I told somebody else this too, Joe. And another thing, I had to thank my wife. uh it was New Year's Eve, I believe. I had to thank her for giving me the space to create, to do what I'm doing, and not being a hindrance and bother. Oh, you out there doing this every day? Are you doing that? But she's giving me my space to allow me to create and doing what I'm doing. That plays a big part
Yeah.
because in this space we need peace and we need the avenue to be able to do what we doing. Although I do spend time with my family, and that goes into it too. I get time to spend time with my family, go out to dinner, go on vacations. We just went to New Orleans for our anniversary in December. We just went to a Super Bowl party last night. So I still have time to spend with family, but at the same time, when I'm in my space, she gives me my space and God gives me my peace, man. And so that's one thing that keeps me motivated and to just inspire, man, and just trying to figure out different ways and listening to the inner voice in me on what to come out with or what to do. And then being a podcast host on the CJ Moneyway Show, it's the people. The people that we've been coming across, because I'm pretty sure both of us on Pod Match that we ain't came across some of the same people. Like that's how I found out you was a Chief fan
Yeah.
through Matt Drake. I
Yeah.
just interviewed him the other day. Great guy.
Oh
You know
yeah.
what I'm saying? Great guy,
Totally cool cat.
And so we've been running across some of the same people, but it's these type of people that inspire you too, man, because the humbleness of folks, the willing to serve others, and what they're doing. And so that's the motivational part too, because you're meeting people all the time, man, on different levels. A lot of things that people can teach you in the space that you in. So when I'm interviewing people, I'm listening, not just as a host, but I'm listening as somebody that's in the audience as well, because I'm trying to learn certain things in this space too, or some other stuff that I may be trying to do in life. And so the people that we coming across, is beneficial. So that motivates me too to keep moving, man.
You're totally right, man. The community is so wonderful. And it reconfirms there's so many good people doing good things. We hear all these headlines that are coming out of DC, all of these things that are happening, all this tension and stress that people are feeling. But I feel like podcasting is a therapeutic realm. There's all of these people that are genuine, like you said. Like I get away from some people and I'm like, man, I can't believe they're doing this. Like they're literally doing for other people. And I feel that selflessness. And I feel like there is increasingly as I'm 52 now, as I get older, like what are we doing? And we did have to ask ourselves a lot of that during COVID. Like why are we here? What are we doing? What's the ultimate goal? And you're obviously very spiritual. And it's like all of those things are things that we need to grab onto because none of us are getting out alive, man. And we got to do what's right while we're here. And when I feel these people doing these things, it's astonishing to me. It's so cool. And that was one thing I was going to ask you. In this process of interviewing people, I'm trying to get the story, but in the process, I have been totally blown away by how many good things happen every day on this planet. For all the woe that the media throws out, You see it. We see all these people that are doing amazing things that are never going to get their proper light of day.
And and so anytime I interview a guest, and one thing that I tell them, because my tagline for my CJ Moneyway show is stories behind the success.
Yeah.
Because as you said, like somebody may see Joe with the famous podcast, and so they like, oh well, Joe made it, and Joe doing this, and Joe doing that, and he's doing a wonderful thing. But a lot of people don't know what it took for Joe to get to where he is, or what I'm saying, the trials and tribulations, the
Yep.
hard times, the failures, And so those are things that I try to highlight in my podcast with guests, with individuals. It's not just about the success, it's about what did you do to get there? How did you endure some of the hardships, some of the hard times? And then, like you say, man, then you listening to some of these people, and I tell them all the time, one of my biggest things with the guest is, and I thank them because of the things, because they may be successful in what they're doing in life, whether it's writing books, whether it's being an author, whether it's being a CEO of their own company, running 10 businesses. Like I was doing a guy interview with a guy from Canada not too long ago. Can't think of his name off the back, but I'll tell you what, he's 84 years old. You probably interviewed Brink, John Brink, that's his name.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
got a body to die for at 84 years old, man.
Crazy. It's crazy. And it really does. I mean, it's like it's just a number because
Yeah,
people just go on like they're 25, 30 years old. They're just doing it, you know. It's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
So speaking of all these things and accomplishments that you've felt in your life, what are you the proudest of?
I'm the proudest. I'm the proudest. As far as in this podcasting space, if that's where you want to go,
Sure.
that I started from. Well, I'm not started. I'm still in the garage, with a hope and a dream. Just went out on my passion. And so my proudest moment is just regardless of how people around me may have felt, or how sometimes you may think that you're going to get support from people that's around you more so than people on the outside. And so being able to get over that aspect of life, because a lot of people that I know, as far as I know, it's not outrightly supporting me. You know what I'm saying? Like as far as I know. Or if they Facebook now or whatever, they sneak watch and things of that nature. But to be able to endure that and get through that type of situation and have a top three podcast globally, according to listen notes, and to be able to have a phone call coming from a Bleav network from California and asking me to bring my podcast onto their podcast platform and to their network. That was a great accomplishment for me. That was a great feeling, to know that people are out there really listening to you. People are out there really enjoying what you're doing. Although it may seem like it's not going anywhere. It may seem like that it's not getting out of these walls of this garage. But not only is it getting out of the walls of the garage, but it's influencing people across the country. It's influencing people in Germany, or what I'm saying, India, and things of that nature. People from California calling you, wanting you to bring their platform on a platform that got 659 hosts already, and they say you can. It's a sports podcast, but they want you to bring yours on just as is. Those are great feelings, man. When
Yeah.
when you start seeing the fruits of your labor, like it ain't in vain. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like, okay, I'm not doing this for nothing, because although it may seem like people around me not liking what I'm doing, but somebody is enjoying it. And so that gives me the fuel to the fire to keep going and keep pushing and keep doing what I'm doing in spite of what I see, because I'm trusting in what God sees, because I can't see California from where I'm at, but he know the doors that's being open. And so I'm just going in doors that's opening up, man. So I prepare myself, Joe. That's what I'm doing. Like, even I prepare myself before I get to the door, because by the time I get to the door, and that door opens up, I want to be able to walk through it because I'm prepared. I don't want the door to open up for me and I'm unprepared to go through the door. And now I'm still standing at the same door that I was at. So I prepare myself, man, before I get to that step. And so that's something that I feel is one of my greatest accomplishments, man. Is just moving forward, being persistent, consistent in what I'm doing, man, and let the chips fall where they may.
Podcasting can feel like you're in a vacuum sometimes. You know what I'm saying? You just don't know what's going on the outside. So to get that validation, because it's not, you're going to keep doing it. But when you get that validation and you get that reward of, yeah, it's working, it just makes you feel good, especially when it's your dream, man. It's just, it's a good thing. So I'm curious, is the voice behind the podcast, is the man behind your mission in your life? Everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, all of your listeners, everyone you work with, but you run the show. They all have this perception. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
My perception of me, man, I'm someone I'm a man who stands on my principles. That's one. I'm a man first of all, and so I'm not, as we was talking about earlier, with all the things that's going on around us as far as society things and how people expect for you to think and they expect for what direction you should go in, how you should raise your sons, how you should raise your daughter. I stand on what I say, whether right, wrong, or indifference. I just feel as though I'm the type of person. I say what I mean what I say, and I'm gonna stand on what I say because because if it says that you're the head and not the tail, above and not beneath, then I'm not gonna act like that I'm beneath when he already told me that I'm above. Now, I'm not saying that I'm better than anyone, but I'm the type of I'm gonna stand where I supposed to stand at. You ain't gonna make me fall down. And make me feel less than a man because that's your perception. Because at the end of the day, I'm confident in who I am.
Yeah.
And so some people try to make you feel uncertain of who you are. You get backlash from family members because they want to remember when, remember who you used to be and things of that nature. I'm past all that now. The Bible, leave it on this, Joe. The Bible say when I was a child, I spoke as a child. I reasoned as a child. I understood as a child. But when I became grown, I put childish things away. And so that's where I'm at right now in my life. I'm grown and I've put childish things away.
So we get off this call, time machine pulls up in front of your house. You can go anywhere in the history of sports and see one game with your own eyes. Where are you
Mm.
going?
I'm going to Kobe's last game. Mamba
Okay.
out.
I remember the outpouring after that game. Like people I didn't even know were even fans, like baseball players and other people. That was a
Mhm.
big deal, man. That would be um my wife's a high school teacher and she was going to get all the kids for Black History Month to pick athletes.
Mhm.
And she had mentioned all the kids started saying LeBron, and she was like, "Well, let's dig into figures. Let's dig into activists." And I said, "Well, hold on a minute. LeBron's done a lot of really good stuff in his life, man. He's a model guy. I mean, his kids in the NBA. That right there. He's built schools in Cleveland. He didn't have to come from Miami back to Cleveland and give them a championship." I mean, this is a guy at the end of the day, his moral integrity, his fortitude, he's a real deal guy, man. He's radiating good, you know. And
Yeah,
I was
and
telling her that. I was like, let him do it because they're going to dig into how good this guy is.
and like you say with LeBron, as we was talking about earlier, with some of the things that you go through. You look at LeBron. Here it is, a young kid who was crowned the king in high school.
Yeah,
So he had expectations coming out of high school to be exactly what he is today. Now, I'm not saying that he's the GOAT, I'm not saying that,
right.
but it's arguably, you know what I'm saying? You can argue the fact that he has numbers to be considered the GOAT. Although a lot of us, like you said, you 52, I'm 51, so we're in a different era, So we seen the Michael Jordan
Oh
up
yeah.
close and personal, and the 6-0 championships and things like that. Although I wasn't a big Bulls fan, I was a Laker fan, but you got to respect greatness. But for the things that LeBron has done, not only, as you was alluding to, not only on the basketball court and have exceeded all expectations and has handled it with grace, playing for 22 years, but the things that he has done off the court as well, talking about businesses, talking about supporting his friends, getting his friends in positions to be powerful individuals in their own right. And you never really hear anything about his outside life with his wife, with his children. Like you say, he's raising his children, going to college. One of them playing in the NBA now. That is a man that stands on his principles
Yeah.
and leads by character and integrity. A lot of people may not like the way he acted on the basketball court, but you cannot deny what this man has done as a man.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, man, if anyone wants to tune into the show, reach out, learn more about all the good stuff that you're doing in your life, how do they do that?
Oh man, one thing, the Google, the CJ Moneyway Show. Everything, all my social media contact, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, the podcast, it'll all pop up.
Right on. Right on. CJ, this has been a delight, man. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. Best of luck with all your endeavors. You're doing wonderful work. So thank you. It's been an honor.
Thanks, Joe, man, for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Take care, man.